Shut up. I'm the head of the family, you have to put me first, no matter what. Bart's fever isn't a big deal. I couldn't believe what he just said. How could you say that? As a parent, you should care about your child more than anything else. Why can't you understand that? Then Bart said something shocking. The person who makes the money is the most important, so I should come first in this house. If you can't accept that, then leave. That was when I decided I had enough. Fine, I'll leave. Yeah, leave. You wouldn't survive without my salary anyway. My name is Rachel, and I'm 30 years old. I've been married to Bart for 5 years, and we have a 3-year-old son named David. We live together as a family of 3. At first, things were great with Bart, but lately, he's been acting arrogant, and it's really bothering me. I met Bart on a blind date, and I was instantly attracted to him. He worked for a good company and was always cheerful. He seemed to like me too, and we started dating right away. After a year, we got married. In the beginning, Bart was kind and caring. He even helped with housework, and he celebrated my birthday and our anniversary. But as time passed, he started treating me with disrespect. I tried to tell myself that things change over time in marriage, but he was getting too cold. Hey, why haven't you ironed my shirt? And when I wake up, my socks should be ready. It was hard for me to take care of David. You're not a child, you should get your own clothes ready. Huh? How dare you argue with your husband? I'm the one providing for you, so you should do as I say. Bart started acting like this after David was born, and I didn't want to get a divorce right away because of our son. But there's another problem. Bart doesn't contribute much to our family budget. He earns $2,500 a month but only gives me $500, saying it should be enough. He spends the rest of his salary on clothes, golf, and other things. It's not enough to cover everything, and we can't even save money for the future or pay for David's education. No matter how much I try to talk to him, he says, "I'm giving you enough money, use what I give you." I keep asking Bart to contribute more, but he won't listen, and we end up fighting. Meanwhile, he complains about how I do housework. It's impossible for a family of 3 to live on just $500 a month. So, to save money, I cook small portions or cheap meals with inexpensive ingredients. We end up eating the same thing a lot. But Bart complains about it, saying, "You're a useless wife who can't cook." Our relationship was falling apart, but I still put up with it until David turned 3. Then something happened that made me realize I couldn't take it anymore. One evening, David was unusually quiet. I thought he might be sick, so I checked his forehead and found he had a high fever. I took his temperature, and it was really high. I rushed him to the hospital, but it was already closed, so we went to the emergency room. There were a lot of people waiting, and it took a while to be seen by the doctor. I tried to comfort David while we waited, telling him, "We'll be called soon. Hang in there." Finally, the doctor saw us, gave David some medicine, and sent us home. I gave David something easy to eat, gave him medicine, and put him to bed while I cooled his forehead. I felt a bit better, but it was the highest fever he had ever had, so I was really worried and exhausted. Then I heard the sound of the key turning in the lock. Bart had come home. "I'm home. Welcome home. Where's my dinner?" "I'm sorry, I'll make it now." I was lying on the couch and was about to get up to go to the kitchen. "What do you mean? Are you kidding me? You think I'm an idiot?" "Sorry, but David had a high fever, so we went to the hospital. I haven't eaten either." I tried to explain calmly, but Bart wouldn't listen. "I don't care if you haven't eaten, just get my dinner ready." I couldn't believe he was acting like this when David was sick. "Shut up, I'm in charge here, you need to put me first. Bart's fever doesn't matter." I couldn't just ignore what he said. How could you say that? As a parent, you should care about your child first. Why can't you understand that? Normally, if your child has a high fever and goes to the hospital, you'd be worried about them. But Bart said something even worse. "The one who makes the money is the most important, so I come first in this house. If you can't accept that, then leave." Something inside me snapped. Up until now, I had hoped Bart would go back to being the kind man he was before, but now, I saw there was no hope left. He couldn't even put our child first, and he thought the one who makes more money was better. I couldn't deal with that mentality anymore. "Okay, I'll leave then." "Yeah, leave, you wouldn't survive without my salary anyway." "Then I'll just eat out tonight. You should go back to your parents' house and calm down." Bart left after saying that. Does he think I'm weak and can't do anything on my own? I'll show him what I'm capable of. I started packing while Bart was gone. David still had a fever, so I waited until he felt better. Once David was asleep, I was ready to leave anytime. The next morning, when David's fever had gone down, I went to check on him. He was still sleeping. After wiping off his sweat and dressing him, I went to the kitchen for breakfast. That's when I ran into Bart, who was leaving for work. When he saw me, he smirked. "What, you haven't left yet?" "I can't leave until David's better." "You really can't leave, can you? You're just a stay-at-home wife. You'll never make it." He laughed and left for work. He made me even angrier. How did he become such a terrible person? When we were dating and at the beginning of our marriage, he was at least a little kinder and more thoughtful. While I was thinking about this, my son woke up. "Mom, I'm hungry. Are you feeling better now?" "Yeah, much better." After breakfast, David was feeling much better, so I decided to leave with him today. I called my parents to come pick us up, and we packed our things. By mid-afternoon, we were at my parents' house. As soon as I stepped into their house, I felt completely drained. I almost fainted from exhaustion. My parents were really worried. "Are you okay, Rachel?" "Yeah, I'm sorry. I think I've been trying so hard to protect us. I didn't realize how much it was taking out of me." "Wow, Bart must have really pushed you a lot." "Yeah, it was more than just emotional abuse." Both of my parents were shocked when they heard how bad things had gotten with Bart. "Grandpa, let's play together." "Okay, let's play. Can we go buy some snacks?" "Snacks? Yes, I want some too." Dad took David out to give me some rest. "You should lie down and rest," Mom said, giving me some blankets. I thanked her and lay down, falling asleep right away. A few hours later, I woke up to the smell of something delicious cooking. It was already evening, and my mom was making dinner. When I went to the dining table, I saw a colorful spread of delicious-looking food. David was so excited, saying, "It looks yummy." My mom's cooking always made me feel better, and it filled me with a deep sense of comfort. "You can stay here as long as you need to heal from all the stress." It felt like a huge weight had been lifted off my shoulders hearing my parents say that. 2 weeks flew by as I relaxed and recovered. Then, one day, someone came to my parents' house. It was Bart. Dad asked, "What do you want to do?" as he looked at the intercom. "I don't want to see him yet," I said. Dad nodded. "Okay, go to the back," and he handled Bart himself. Bart insisted on seeing me, but Dad refused to let him in. After a while, Bart gave up and left. From what I heard later, Bart didn't come to apologize. He never mentioned anything about saying sorry. I knew he was probably just struggling with the housework, realizing how messy everything was without me, but that's not my problem anymore. I hope he understands how hard housework is. He used to help, so he just had to remember how he did it, but I guess he forgot because he wasn't used to doing it. While staying at my parents' house, I blocked Bart's number, so the only way he could reach me was by coming to my parents' house. I didn't go back to him and stayed there with David. Bart came by a few times, but each time, Dad sent him away. A month passed, and Bart was at his limit. He begged, "Please let me see Rachel," bowing to my father. I thought it was time to see him, so I asked Dad to let Bart come in to talk to me. My mom took David to the back room to wait. When I saw Bart, I was shocked. He looked awful. His hair was messy, and his clothes were dirty and wrinkled. He had come straight from work, but his suit looked like he had slept in it. "Hey, Rachel, you've had enough now, right? Just come home." That was the first thing he said when he saw me after a long time. In that moment, all my hope vanished, and I felt like a cold wall was growing between us. I need to get away from him as soon as I can. I don't know what you're thinking, but if you're not going to say anything, my house is a mess, and I don't know what to do. As my wife, you should do your duty, Bart said, even though my father was right there. My dad looked shocked, because Bart was repeating everything I had told him about how he treated me. "Is that all you have to say? Normally, you should be apologizing," my dad said. "Huh?" Bart looked confused. "Why should I apologize? You're the one who left me, and you're not doing any housework. I came all the way here after you did something selfish." Is he for real? I can't save him anymore. If you really think like that, then there's nothing more to talk about. Let's divorce. I took out the divorce papers I had prepared when I came to my parents' house and handed them to him. "Huh? Divorce? Why are you saying this all of a sudden?" "All of a sudden? Are you kidding me? Do you have any idea how much you've hurt and tormented me?" "Honestly, I should have asked for a divorce a long time ago. You make me do everything you don't want to do, and you don't even help me with raising our child. You only put a little money into our family budget. There's no way we can live on just $500 a month. How can you not understand that? You only care about yourself, don't you? Bart looked stunned, not expecting me to be this angry. But you've been getting by with the money I've given you, and your meals have been decent lately. Did you think I wasn't doing anything? I'm working from home now, because the money you give isn't enough. Huh, really? I knew I couldn't give David a better life if I didn't do something, so I started looking for a remote job. I found one as an English teacher. I had lived in the US when I was younger, and I spoke English fluently. I had attended international schools and studied English literature at university, so I was well qualified. I began teaching right away, and I thought of creative ways to make learning English fun for my students. As a result, I started studying Western movies and music, and decided to create my own teaching materials by gathering phrases that could be used in everyday situations. Many people who want to learn English love Western movies and music, so I adjusted the movies and artists I used based on each student's preferences. This worked really well for my students, and many of them started asking me for help. Because of that, I'm now making a decent amount of money. I had no idea. How much are you making? About $4,000 a month. What, that much? So, I make more than you now, and I don't need to live with you anymore. Bart was completely shocked. He couldn't believe that his wife, whom he'd thought was beneath him, was earning more than he was. Why am I so miserable? What do you mean, all of a sudden? My coworkers are getting promoted before me, and now my juniors are moving ahead of me too. They all think I'm an idiot, and to top it off, you're even making more money than me. I sighed deeply. So what? Huh? It doesn't matter if your salary is lower or higher than other people's. What matters is whether you and your family are happy. For David and me, it doesn't matter if you're not getting promoted. What's important is that you make time for your family and provide for them. Don't you think so? I don't want you hurting me just to protect your fragile pride. Shut up. A man has to fight his battles and not lose. At that moment, my dad, who had been silent until then, spoke up. So, you're trying to boost your self-esteem by taking out your work stress on my daughter, spending money on your hobbies and clothes to feel better, and ignoring your family? Bart looked uncomfortable hearing my dad's words. As I told my daughter, the most important thing for a husband and father is to be the strong pillar of the family, supporting them financially, but you only think of yourself. I can't trust a man like that with my precious daughter and grandchild anymore. Now, sign the divorce papers and leave. My dad was furious. He had tried to stay calm in front of me, but he had reached his limit. Bart signed the divorce papers, trembling from my dad's anger. After Bart said, "Oh, I'm sorry," he quickly left. And that's how Bart and I ended our marriage so quickly. Later, I heard from a mutual friend that Bart was saying, "I dumped my wife because she was a useless, lousy wife." But at work, everyone already knew how Bart was, so they just ignored him. No one would want him as a boss, so he stayed in the same position for years without a promotion. One day, a new employee asked him, "What? You're a mid-career employee and haven't been promoted at your age? Are you a new graduate who just joined? You can't even do your job, huh?" The employee made fun of him, and Bart left work early, embarrassed. Apparently, once you're an adult, a twisted personality is hard to change. I decided that I would raise David carefully, hoping he would grow up to be an honest and kind person, using Bart as a bad example. Now, David smiles at me with such a sweet and carefree smile, and I know he will never turn into someone like Bart. To protect that smile, I will keep working hard every day. Bart is a foolish man who destroys others' happiness just to protect his own fragile pride, but I'm glad Rachel and David got out of that situation quickly. With the money Rachel's making, I'm sure she can manage as a single mother. I hope Rachel and her beautiful son continue to live a happy life. Thank you for watching until the end. Please subscribe to our channel. See you in the next video.
Hi everyone, I'm Emily Jackson. Growing up, I always knew I was playing second fiddle to my sister, Emma. Even now, at 28, with my software engineering career thriving, nothing I do seems to matter to my parents. Let me give you a glimpse of what I'm dealing with. Emily, why can't you dress more like your sister? She always looks so put together, my mom said during our weekly family dinner, completely ignoring the promotion I just announced. Mom, I'm leading a major project at Silicon Tech now. I said, trying to keep my voice steady. That's nice, dear, she replied dismissively. But did you hear? Emma's boyfriend James is taking her to Paris next month. Isn't that wonderful? I caught my best friend Ava's eye across the table. I brought her along for moral support, and she gave me the look she always does when my family pulls this nonsense. Actually, Mrs. Jackson, Ava jumped in, her voice steady and polite. Emily's project could revolutionize her company's entire security system. Speaking of security, my dad interrupted. Emma and James are looking at houses in the Heritage District. Now that's a secure investment. I stared at my plate, pushing my food around, trying to hold my tongue. Memories of being sidelined flashed through my mind. The student loans I'd worked 3 jobs to pay off while Emma got a free ride. The family vacations I wasn't invited to because Emma needed quality time with mom and dad. Have you seen Emma's engagement ring? My mom gushed, shoving her phone toward Ava. James proposed last weekend, $20,000. Can you believe it? How nice, Ava said flatly, squeezing my hand under the table. Later that night, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Emma. Mom says you seem jealous at dinner. Don't worry, you can be a bridesmaid if you stick to the diet plan I make for you. You don't have to respond to that, Ava said firmly as we sat in my apartment. Your sister's a piece of work. Did I tell you what happened at work today? My mentor, Diana, said I'm being considered for the executive track. That's amazing, I said, smiling despite myself. See, you're crushing it on your own terms. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Emma. James's family is coming to dinner tomorrow. Try not to embarrass me by talking about your computer stuff. You know what the worst part is? I said, turning to Ava. I keep trying. I keep thinking that if I just achieve enough, they'll finally see me. Well, I see you, Ava said, her voice gentle but firm. And trust me, your sister's perfect life isn't as perfect as she pretends. I had no idea then how right Ava was, or how much everything was about to implode. The wedding preparations were just beginning, setting off a chain of events that would expose every lie my family had built Emma's golden pedestal on. A few weeks later, the big day arrived, and I found myself sitting in the back row of Emma's wedding reception. Yes, you heard that right. The back row. Not the bridal party, not even the family section. Just shoved into a corner like some distant acquaintance. Can you believe she set you back here? Ava whispered, adjusting her dress. Her own sister. Honestly, I can. I watched Emma twirl in her designer gown, our parents beaming beside her. Everything was going exactly as expected until a server placed a fancy envelope next to my plate. Thinking it was part of the wedding favors, I opened it and froze. Is this some kind of joke? I asked, staring at the bill inside. $200 for my plate, along with a handwritten note. We expect payment before you leave. Let me see that, Ava said, snatching the paper. Her face turned crimson as she read it. Oh hell no, she pulled out her phone and began recording discreetly. Emily dear, my mother's syrupy voice interrupted as she approached our table. Did you get the envelope? Mom, I said, my voice shaking, are you seriously charging me for attending my own sister's wedding? Well, sweetie, Emma thought it was only fair since you didn't contribute to the wedding expenses, she said smoothly. Unlike James's family, who've been so generous. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw James, my new brother-in-law, watching from a distance looking uncomfortable. James hesitated, but I couldn't hold back anymore. I offered to help with the planning, the decorations, everything. Emma told me she didn't want my help because I'd embarrass her with my simple tastes. My mother sniffed dismissively. Well, you would have, dear. Now will that be cash or check? Ava's phone was still recording when Emma sauntered over, her gown trailing behind her like a trophy. Oh good, you got the bill. Just trying to teach my little sister about financial responsibility. Not all of us can waste our lives playing with computers. Playing with computers? I'm a senior software engineer, I snapped. I make 6 figures. Then paying shouldn't be a problem, Emma smirked. Consider it your wedding gift since you clearly couldn't afford anything from my registry. That's when James stepped in, his voice low but firm. Emma, we talked about this. This isn't right. Stay out of it, James, she hissed. This is family business. My hands trembled as I reached for my purse and pulled out my checkbook. You want your money. Fine. My voice was tight as I scribbled on the check. Here's your $200. Consider it the last thing you'll ever get from me. Don't be dramatic, Emily, my dad said, appearing suddenly. Your sister just got married. Can't you think about someone besides yourself for once? I handed the check over, stood up, and walked out. Behind me, Emma's shrill voice pierced the air. See, she always has to make everything about herself. What none of them knew was that this bill wasn't just a bill, it was the final straw, and thanks to Ava's quick thinking, we had proof of everything. 2 months after the wedding disaster, I sat in Diana's office at Silicon Tech, staring at an opportunity that could change everything. Seattle needs a strong leader, Emily, Diana said. The position comes with double your current salary and full team control. Just as my excitement began to bubble, my phone buzzed. Another text from Emma. Need to talk ASAP. Financial emergency. I ignored it, focusing on Diana. When would I need to decide? By Friday, she said. Then she hesitated. But Emily, there's something else. A client flagged irregular transactions from Jackson Family Enterprises, your parents' business. I froze. Irregular transactions. Later that day, Ava burst into my office, her face flushed with urgency. Emily, you're not going to believe this. Your parents' company. They've been running 2 sets of books. Emma's been using the business accounts like her personal piggy bank. My stomach dropped. How do you know this? James called me. He found gambling receipts, hundreds of thousands. Emily, she's been forging your dad's signature. My phone rang. Emma again. This time I answered, putting her on speaker. Emily, I need $50,000, she said, her voice shaky. I know you have savings. It's just a loan. Things with James are tight right now. Excuse me? I said, my voice cold. You mean because you're gambling away his money too? Dead silence. Then a panicked whisper. How did you? Who told you? Does it matter? I replied. The answer is no. I'm your sister, she cried. After everything Mom and Dad did for you. Did for me, I snapped. You mean charging me for your wedding? Making me pay back every penny of college while they funded your shopping sprees. Because you're the strong one. Emma's voice cracked. You can handle it. I'm not built for struggling. Ava, still recording, finally spoke up. You built your entire life on making Emily struggle instead. Is that Ava? Are you recording this? Emily, tell your little spy toe. I hung up. Minutes later, my mother called. Your sister is crying, she said, her tone scolding. How dare you refuse to help family? Like you helped me, Mom. I said, my voice icy. Should I send you a bill for this phone call? Don't be bitter, Emily. We heard about your promotion. Seattle branch, right? You can't abandon your family now. Emma needs you. Emma needs consequences, I said firmly. In the background, I heard my father's panicked voice. They're auditing the business. James's father must have reported us to the IRS. Emma's wailing grew louder. My mother's voice turned sugary sweet. Emily, you're so good with numbers. Maybe you could help us sort this out? No, I said simply. We're not family anymore. I hung up and turned to Ava. Send me copies of everything you recorded. Already did, Ava said, smirking. James, too. He's filing for divorce, by the way. Turns out Emma's been lying to him about, well, everything. Just then, Diana poked her head into the office. Emily, Seattle needs an answer. I stood up, feeling lighter than I had in years. Tell them I accept. 1 year later, I stood on stage at the Women in Tech Awards, accepting the Innovation Lead of the Year award. The Seattle skyline sparkled through the convention center windows, shimmered in the golden glow of twilight, matching the glint of my trophy. My phone buzzed, a text from Ava. Emma's gambling debts finally caught up. Your parents had to sell the house to cover what she stole. They're moving into a tiny apartment next week. I slipped the phone back into my pocket, focusing on the networking reception. Just as I raised my champagne glass, my new assistant approached with a message. Call from James Harrison, she said. Finding a quiet corner, I dialed. Emily, James began, his voice steady but somber. The divorce is final. But there's something you should know. The IRS investigation. They found everything. Define everything, I said, bracing myself. 20 years of tax fraud. Emma's embezzlement was just the tip of the iceberg. Your parents, they've lost everything. The business, their retirement, all of it. I sipped my champagne, letting the news sink in. And Emma, She's living in their apartment's spare room. Nobody will hire her with the fraud charges pending. Oh, and she tried opening credit cards in your name last month. She what? Don't worry, I caught it in time. Being a financial advisor has its perks. She can't touch you. Later that night, my hotel room phone rang, displaying an unfamiliar number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Baby girl, please. My mother's voice was thick with tears. We made mistakes. Mistakes. My voice was icy. You systematically destroyed my self-worth, enabled Emma's abuse, and tried to drag me down with you. Emma wants to apologize, she said weakly. She's changed. We've all changed. In the background, I heard Emma's muffled plea. Tell her I'll go to therapy. I'll do anything. You had decades to change, I said sharply. Funny how it only matters now that you've lost everything. We're living off Social Security, my mother whispered. The IRS took everything. Consequences, Mom. Remember when you taught Emma she'd never have to face any? Well, this is what they look like. I hung up and stepped onto my hotel balcony, watching the sunset paint Seattle's sky in shades of purple and gold. My phone chimed again. A message from Diana Bard. Loved your presentation. GP position is yours if you want it. Another text popped up, this time from Ava. Your old house just sold. Guess who bought it? James's private investment firm. They're turning it into a women's shelter. I smiled, remembering Emma's sneers about my little computer job. Now I was making 7 figures, driving a Tesla to my corner office, while she filled out job applications at fast food joints. My phone buzzed one last time. Emma, using Dad's phone. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I'm your sister. I blocked that number too and ordered room service. Tomorrow I'd wake up in my luxury condo, ready to lead my team in revolutionizing tech security. Meanwhile, Emma would wake up on a pull-out couch. Mom would clip coupons, and Dad would struggle to pay the electric bill. They say success is the best revenge, but sometimes success isn't about revenge. It's about walking away from people who never deserved you in the first place. What would you have done if you were in my shoes when Emma called crying and begging for forgiveness? Would you have given your toxic family another chance, or would you have kept your distance like I did? Sometimes the hardest part isn't building yourself up. It's staying strong when your abusers suddenly want back into your life after karma hits them. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I've always been the one holding my family together. My name is Anna, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the responsible one, the dependable daughter who gave more of herself than she ever received in return. When I landed a solid career as a project manager, it wasn't just a win for me, it became a lifeline for my parents. Every month, like clockwork, I'd send them nearly half of my paycheck to ensure they lived comfortably. My younger brother, Matthew, was the family's golden child. 5 years my junior, he basked in their endless praise and affection while I toiled quietly in the shadows. He was celebrated. I was relied upon. For years, I believed that if I gave enough of my time, my money, my energy, one day they'd see me, not as their safety net, but as someone worthy of love and appreciation. That hope shattered when my mother made an unbearable demand. I was to cancel my wedding to save the family business, a business Matthew had driven to the brink of ruin with his reckless spending and poor decisions. The call came just days before my wedding. Anna, we need your help, my mother said, her voice devoid of doubt or hesitation. The business is in trouble, and Matthew, he needs your support to get it back on track. I felt my stomach twist. This was supposed to be my time. Finally, a moment for my happiness. Mom, I said, steadying my voice, I've always supported you, but I can't bail out the business. I have my own future to think about. There was a long silence before her voice returned, cold and cutting. So, you're just going to abandon us after everything we've done for you? Walk away when your family needs you most. I closed my eyes, forcing myself to stay calm. I'm not abandoning anyone. I'm choosing, for once, to prioritize my own life. I'm getting married, and I can't risk my future to fix Matthew's mistakes. Her tone sharpened. This isn't just about money, Anna. It's about family. We've always counted on you. If you don't step up now, the business could fall apart. The weight of her expectations crushed down on me. It was as though my dreams didn't matter, as if my life existed solely to serve them and shield Matthew from the consequences of his actions. I can't, Mom, I said firmly. I've given so much. It's time Matthew takes responsibility. She hung up without another word, but her disappointment lingered in the silence. The next day, as I reviewed the final details for my wedding, a loud knock startled me. I opened the door to find my mother standing there, her face twisted with anger. "What are you doing here?" I asked, shocked. She shoved her way inside. "How could you?" she spat. "How could you turn your back on us when we need you the most?" I stepped back, her fury leaving me momentarily speechless. "Mom, I've given you almost half my salary every month for years. I've done everything you've asked of me, but I can't throw my future away to fix Matthew's mistakes." Her eyes narrowed, and before I could react, she slapped me hard across the face. The sting was immediate, but the deeper pain was in my heart. "How dare you talk to me like that?" she shouted. "After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us. You don't disobey me, Anna. You owe this family everything." I clutched my burning cheek, tears threatening to spill. This was it, the moment I finally saw the truth. To them, I was nothing more than a provider, a resource. My sacrifices, my love, my support, it would never be enough. Fighting back the tears, I took a shaky breath. "Mom, I love you, but I can't keep sacrificing my happiness to fix everyone else's mistakes. I won't let you control my life anymore." She sneered, crossing her arms. "Fine, don't expect us to be there when you come crawling back. You're making a huge mistake, Anna. Don't come running to us when your selfishness catches up to you." Her words were sharp, designed to wound, but for the first time, they didn't cut as deep. Instead, I felt an unexpected sense of liberation, as if a weight I'd carried for years was finally lifting. I didn't need her approval anymore. This was my life, and I was finally claiming it. After my mother stormed out, I stood motionless in a quiet apartment, letting the gravity of what had just happened settle over me. My cheek still stung from her slap, but it paled in comparison to the clarity that had just taken root. I had spent my entire life striving to be the perfect daughter, the dependable one, the provider. But to them, I was never more than a means to an end. That evening, Daniel came over to finalize wedding plans. The moment he saw my face, his brow furrowed in concern. He stepped closer, gently brushing his fingers against my cheek. "Lindo, what happened?" I tried to hold it together, but my voice wavered as I recounted everything. "My mom came over. She slapped me and demanded I use my savings to bail out the family business, right before our wedding." Daniel's face darkened, his jaw tightening. He pulled me into his arms, his embrace firm yet comforting. "Anna," he said softly but with resolve, "you don't deserve this. You've given them so much, and they just keep demanding more. It's not fair." I know I whispered, my voice barely audible. But it's hard. I've spent my whole life trying to make them proud, trying to be the one they could count on. And now, it feels like they've never seen me as anything more than a source of support. He cupped my face, his eyes meeting mine with a tenderness that melted my defenses. "You're not just their support. You're a person, Anna. You have dreams, and those dreams matter. You don't need to feel guilty for choosing yourself." His words, simple yet powerful, struck a chord deep within me. For the first time, I felt truly seen. Daniel wasn't just my fiancé, he was my safe haven, the one person who stood by me unconditionally. We spent the rest of the evening together, going over wedding details and talking about our future. For once, I felt like I was moving forward, unburdened by the expectations that had always held me back. In the days leading up to the wedding, the messages from my mother didn't stop. Texts, voicemails, emails, they poured in relentlessly, each one more intense than the last. "Anna, you're making a huge mistake," one read. "When this wedding falls apart, don't expect us to welcome you back. Family comes first, and you're putting yourself above everyone else." I deleted the messages without responding. The guilt and shame she tried to heap upon me no longer had the same power. Choosing myself wasn't selfish, it was necessary. The night before the wedding, my Aunt Julia called. She had always been one of the few family members who genuinely cared for me. "Anna," she said gently, "I've heard about everything with your parents. I just want you to know that you're doing the right thing. You've given so much to this family, and you deserve to be happy." A lump formed in my throat. Aunt Julia's words were a balm to my soul. "Thank you," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. "It's just hard. Letting go of everything I've done for them feels like abandoning who I've always been." "You're not abandoning who you are," she replied. "You're finally embracing who you've always been meant to be, Choosing yourself isn't wrong, it's brave. Her words stayed with me as I prepared for my wedding the next morning. A surprising sense of calm washed over me. Gone was the usual anxiety that accompanied family gatherings. Instead, there was quiet determination. This day was for Daniel and me, a celebration of a life we were choosing together. As I stood before the mirror, dressed in my gown, I saw myself clearly for the first time. A woman free from the crushing weight of her family's expectations. When I walked down the aisle and saw Daniel waiting for me, his eyes lit up with pride and love. It was a look that said, "I see you, Anna. All of you." In that moment, I knew every sacrifice, every painful realization had led me here, to a place of pure freedom and joy. We exchanged our vows, promising to stand by each other in ways I had never experienced before. Daniel's words about supporting my dreams and valuing me for who I was, not what I could provide, felt like a soothing balm, healing years of pain. The reception that followed was small, intimate, and filled with genuine love. Surrounded by people who celebrated me simply for being myself, I felt at peace. For the first time, I was living a life on my terms. In the days after the wedding, Daniel and I packed up and moved to Austin. It was the start of a new chapter, a fresh beginning in a city where we could build a life free from the shadows of my family's demands. The transition wasn't without its challenges. Just days after settling into our new apartment, I received another message from my mother. It was blunt, harsh, and filled with accusations. "You've abandoned your family. You chose yourself over us. When things go wrong, don't expect us to be there for you." The words stung, but this time, they didn't carry the same weight. I read them with a newfound resilience, recognizing the same manipulative tactics I've faced my entire life. Guilt-laden words meant to reel me back under their control. But now there was no pull, only a quiet strength, a certainty that I'd made the right choice. Daniel noticed the change in me one night as we sat on our balcony, overlooking the Austin skyline. He wrapped his arm around my shoulders and said, "Anna, I'm proud of you. I know it hasn't been easy, but you've come so far. You're free from all of that now." His words were simple, but they filled me with a sense of accomplishment I hadn't realized I was craving. For years, I've been the perfect daughter, the unwavering supporter, bearing the weight of my family's expectations. But now, for the first time, I could breathe. I could live for myself. Weeks turned into months, and life with Daniel felt like everything I had ever hoped for. We spent our days dreaming about the future, planning our next steps, and talking about starting a family someday. Our life was simple, but it was ours, untainted by the toxic cycles I had left behind. One afternoon, I received an unexpected call from my cousin Adam. "Anna," he said, his voice filled with genuine remorse. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I've heard everything that happened, and I don't know why they treated you that way. You've always deserved better." Hearing those words brought a lump to my throat. I hadn't expected an apology, let alone validation from someone within my family. "Thank you, Adam," I replied softly. "It's been hard, but I'm finally in a place where I feel free." Adam's words reminded me that, while my parents remained distant, there were still people in my family who cared. Over the following months, I began to rebuild relationships with those who had always seen me for who I truly was: Aunt Julia, Uncle Jacob, a few cousins, and close friends. They became my extended family, the ones who celebrated my joy without strings attached. However, my relationship with my parents remained strained. I couldn't forget the years of manipulation, the slap, or how they had always prioritized Matthew. Every time I considered reaching out, memories of the endless sacrifices and the pain resurfaced. Deep down, I knew I couldn't return to that cycle. My life, my peace, depended on setting firm boundaries. Months after the wedding, I received one final message from my mother. It was short, almost desperate. "I miss you, Anna. Please call me." I stared at the screen, feeling a familiar pang of guilt, but this time, I didn't waver. I glanced around at the life Daniel and I had built, the peace, the independence, and I knew exactly what I needed to do. I replied with a message that was both kind and resolute. "I'm happy with the life I've built. I can't go back to what it was. I need to move forward." As I pressed send, a wave of closure washed over me. It was a quiet victory, a final release of the past and all its burdens. I had chosen myself, my happiness, and my future. I looked at Daniel, at the life we were building together, and for the first time in my life, I felt truly free. Hi, everyone. I'm Helen Tyler, 33 years old and one of the top real estate agents in Boston, a title I earned through sheer determination after growing up with almost nothing. But this story isn't about my success. It's about how success can make you a target. Helen, you've truly outdone yourself with this house, my best friend Maria said, sipping her coffee as we sat on my freshly furnished porch. Thanks, Maria. 3 years of saving every commission and enduring that tiny studio apartment finally paid off. I smiled proudly, though the shadow of my mother-in-law's disdain hung over me. Of course, according to Andrea, this house is quaint, not quite up to what her precious son deserves. Maria rolled her eyes dramatically. Speaking of the devil's favorite pediatrician, how's married life treating you? Jack is wonderful when his mother isn't pulling his strings, I admitted. Just yesterday. Helen, darling. Andrea's voice cut through the air like nails on a chalkboard as she waltzed up my driveway uninvited. Andrea. I greeted her stiffly, inwardly cringing. Before I could say more, Jack's voice followed hers. Mom, what are you doing here? He called out, walking up from the driveway, still in his scrubs. Andrea clasped her hands as if she'd just spotted a celebrity. Oh, Jack, sweetheart. Your father and I were just talking about you over lunch. He agrees. You're working far too hard at that public hospital. My friend Margaret's private practice is hiring. You'd make such a better impression there. Jack sighed. Mom, we've been over this. I love my job. I'm not switching. But darling. Eleanor, there you are. Patricia, Andrea's equally insufferable sister, barged through my still open front door. You won't believe what Margaret told me about Helen's old neighborhood. She gave me a condescending smile. Speaking of family, Robert and I are hosting Sunday dinner. Helen, dear, try to dress appropriately this time. I glanced at Jack, whose expression crumbled under the weight of yet another confrontation. Years of Andrea's emotional manipulation had worn him down. Actually, I said firmly, we already have plans. But it's family dinner. Andrea gasped. Jack hasn't missed one, not even when he had the flu last year. Remember how I nursed you back to health, sweetheart? Mom, Jack began, but I cut him off. It's fine, Jack. This was my life now, a revolving door of Wilson family drama, with my husband caught in the crossfire and my home turned into their personal gathering spot. Little did I know, though, that Andrea's antics were only beginning. The next escalation came over a mahogany dining table at Andrea's house. She had summoned me under the guise of an important birthday discussion. Helen, dear, Andrea began, clasping her perfectly manicured hands. You clearly don't understand Wilson family traditions. For milestone birthdays, we give substantial gifts. When Robert turned 60, his brother gave him his beach house. I frowned. This is my house, bought with my own money, before I even met Jack. Exactly, Andrea said with a syrupy smile. That's why it would make such a meaningful gesture. Show us you're truly committed to becoming a Wilson. I stared at her in disbelief and, without a word, discreetly started recording the conversation on my phone. Let me get this straight. You're banning me from your birthday celebration unless I sign over my house to you. Don't be so dramatic, Andrea replied. I'm simply suggesting that if you want to be included in family traditions, you need to demonstrate proper family values. My phone buzzed. A text from Maria. You won't believe what I just heard at the country club. Your NIL's been showing some decorator around your house. Who's Amanda Phillips? I asked Andrea, watching her expression. Andrea blinked, feigning innocence. I don't know who that is. Really? Because she's telling everyone she's redesigning my house after your birthday. Well, Andrea said with a dismissive shrug, I naturally assumed you'd want to give me something special. At that moment, Jack walked into the dining room. Mom, what's going on? Helen looks upset. Oh, honey, I was just explaining our family tradition to your wife, Andrea cooed. She seems resistant to embracing it. What tradition? Jack asked, his brow furrowing. Your mother wants me to sign over our house as her birthday gift, I said evenly. Jack froze. Mom, that's insane. Jack Wilson. Andrea's voice rose, sharp with indignation. After everything I've sacrificed for you, this is exactly what I warned everyone about. Andrea's voice climbed to a shrill pitch, her eyes blazing with righteous indignation. She's turned you against your own mother, Jack. Just like she trapped you with that house in the first place. Trapped him? I snapped, my voice trembling with restrained fury. What are you even talking about, Andrea? Oh, don't play innocent, she sneered. Everyone knows you bought that house to lure my son into marriage. Poor Jack was too naive to see through your gold-digging scheme. My hands clenched into fists. I bought that house years before I even met Jack. I have the paperwork to prove it. Jack stepped forward, his voice tight with disbelief. Mom, how could you say that? Helen worked hard for that house. Hard work? Andrea laughed bitterly. Please, we all know about her arrangements with certain clients. Before I could respond, the front door swung open, and Maria marched in, clutching a folder. Perfect timing, she said, glaring at Andrea. Actually, Andrea, I've got some interesting documents here. Remember the Hendersons? They're saying you pulled the same stunt with them. Demanded their summer cottage for Robert's 55th birthday. And the Paddles? Their vintage car collection. Andrea's face paled. That's private family business. Just like how you bankrupted your own sister trying to get her vineyard. Maria added coldly. Patricia told me everything. Jack turned to his mother, his expression devastated. Mom, is this true? Jack, darling, Andrea said, her tone turning saccharine. You don't understand. Everything I do is for this family's reputation. Helen simply isn't good enough for you. I mean, look at her background. Jack's jaw tightened. The only thing not good enough here is your behavior, he said quietly. We're leaving. And Mom, don't bother sending that birthday invitation. As we walked out, Andrea's voice echoed behind us. You'll regret this, Helen. Nobody refuses Andrea Wilson. Nobody. Little did she know, I had recorded the entire conversation. The next day, I met Patricia over coffee. Her face went pale as I played the recording. This is exactly what she did to Claire, Patricia said, her voice trembling. Jack's college girlfriend. Andrea demanded her family's lakeside cabin as a family gift. When they refused, what happened? I asked. Andrea destroyed her, Patricia whispered. She spread rumors, pregnancy scams, drugs. Claire's family had to move away. I stayed quiet then, not anymore. My phone buzzed with another message, this one from Robert's investment advisor. Mrs. Tyler, we need to discuss concerning transactions from your in-laws' accounts. Eleanor's been stealing from Robert's retirement fund, I told Patricia, scanning the texts. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. Gambling debts. Patricia's hand shook as she pulled out her phone. There's more. Andrea convinced Robert to sign these documents last month. Look at the signature. I squinted. That's Jack's signature. But he never. She forged it, Patricia said grimly. Just like she forged Claire's signature years ago. I found a whole folder. Jack's voice cracked behind us. I just got the strangest call from Atlantic City, a casino's collection department. He looked shaken. I took his hand. Sit down, Jack. There's something you need to see. We spent hours going through the evidence, the forged signatures, the drained accounts, the sabotaged business deals, the gambling debts. As Andrea's web of lies unraveled, I watched decades of manipulation click into place in Jack's mind. She's been calling my hospital too, he said quietly, telling him I'm planning to quit. They almost reassigned my position. Patricia touched his arm gently. Jack, there's something else you need to know about Claire. As she told him everything, the weight of Andrea's betrayals crushed Jack's resolve. His shoulders sagged under the weight of it all. But his eyes burned with newfound clarity. Meanwhile, Andrea's reign of terror was beginning to implode. At the country club's monthly meeting, her tirade against me was interrupted by a stern voice. Mrs. Wilson, we need to discuss your outstanding gambling markers and these bounced checks. That night, Robert called, his voice hollow. Helen, did you know about the retirement account? I just found out, I said softly. 30 years of savings, he whispered. She said she was investing in real estate. Real estate, Jack said bitterly, glancing at the documents strewn across our kitchen table. Mom doesn't know anything about, oh God, the house demands. That's what this was all about, I said, the realization hitting me like a tidal wave. She needed collateral for her gambling debts. Patricia nodded grimly. She's underwater with some very dangerous people. Later that night, Robert's voice was firm over the phone. I've called a family meeting tomorrow. Andrea needs to face what she's done. When the call ended, Jack pulled me into his arms. I'm so sorry, Helen. All these years, I never saw it. We'll get through this, I assured him. Yes, we will. Without her. My phone buzzed one last time. A message from Andrea. You'll pay for this, Helen. I made Jack who he is. He's nothing without me. Nothing. But her threats were hollow now. The truth was out, and her meticulously constructed world was crumbling. In the lawyer's office the next day, Robert's voice was steady but heavy with emotion. The papers are signed. After 35 years, I never thought it would end like this. You left me no choice. Andrea screeched, her voice raw with desperation. If Helen hadn't turned everyone against me. You stole my retirement, Andrea. Robert interrupted coldly. You forged our son's signature. The gambling, the lies. At that moment, a burly man appeared in the doorway. About Miss Wilson's markers at Golden Sands Casino. I'm not responsible for her debts, Robert said, his tone final. We're divorced now. Weeks later, Maria sent me a text. Just drove past Andrea's new place. You won't believe it, she's in that tiny complex by the highway. Jack returned from his therapy session that evening, looking lighter than I'd seen him in years. Dr. Stevens helped me understand so much about my childhood, the manipulation, the guilt trips. I can't believe I let her control me for so long. He smiled softly. Dad called. She tried to crash Margaret's garden party. They had to escort her out. Apparently, she was screaming about how everyone betrayed her. Meanwhile, my real estate business was thriving without Andrea sabotaging deals behind the scenes. 3 bids had come in for my newest development that week alone. Months passed. My empire grew stronger, and my confidence soared. I even bought the building Andrea was evicted from. Karma, as they say, works in mysterious ways. The holidays arrived, and our annual party was in full swing. Friends, family, and laughter filled our home. Through the window, I spotted a familiar figure standing in the snow watching. Andrea, alone. Inside, Robert, now looking years younger since the divorce, raised his glass. To family, the real kind. To consequences, Maria added with a smirk. The next morning, a gold embossed envelope arrived. Andrea's rescheduled birthday party invitation. The irony was delicious. I took a red marker, wrote return to sender in bold letters, and added a sticky note. Unlike houses, some gifts are easy to return. Through my office window, I watched the mail carrier pick it up. Somewhere across town, in a dingy apartment with a view of the highway, Andrea Wilson would receive one final reminder. She had no power here anymore. Not over my house. Not over my marriage. Not over my life. My phone buzzed. A new client referral. Life was good. And success, I realized, truly is the best revenge. While Andrea sat alone in her small apartment, surrounded by gambling debts and burned bridges, I stood in the home I built with my loving husband, a thriving business, and a chosen family that stood by me through it all. Sometimes, prom doesn't just knock, it takes away your country club membership and replaces it with a view of the freeway. Hi, I'm Lisa Williams. I never imagined I'd be sharing my story, yet here I am, a 33-year-old marketing executive with a successful career and a life more complicated than anyone could guess. Ever since my father passed away last year, leaving me his estate and investment portfolio, life has been both a blessing and unexpectedly a curse. Lisa, honey, you really should consider seeing that financial advisor I recommended. My mother-in-law, Patricia, suggested during one of our weekly family dinners. Her perfectly manicured nails tapped lightly against her salmon plate. Thanks, Patricia, but Emma's handling everything perfectly, I said, watching her lips tighten at the mention of my best friend and attorney. Darling, you know I only want what's best for the family, she replied, emphasizing family in that familiar, pointed way that always made me feel like an outsider. James, my husband, squeezed my hand under the table. Mom, Lisa's doing great managing everything. I reached for my heart medication, a constant reminder of my rare condition. Patricia's eyes followed the movement, her gaze calculating. Such expensive medicine, she murmured. Thank goodness for your father's inheritance. The following week, over lunch with Emma, she stirred her coffee thoughtfully. I'm telling you, something's off with Patricia, Emma said. The way she keeps pushing about your finances. She's always been controlling, but lately, I trailed off, recalling the latest incident. What happened? She reorganized my home office without asking. Said she was helping, but all my important documents were moved. Before Emma could respond, Michael, James's younger brother, appeared, looking uneasy. Hey, Lisa, Emma. Just wanted to check in. Everything okay? Yeah? Why? Just be careful with the family documents, okay? Mom's been asking weird questions about your inheritance. As he left, Patricia's friend Diana approached our table. Lisa, darling, those charity event photos were lovely. Your father would have been so proud, she said, her voice dropping conspiratorially. Though Patricia had interesting comments. That evening, James brought up the charity event. Mom thinks we should combine our accounts, make things simpler. Our current arrangement works fine, I replied, taking my evening medication. But we're family, Lisa. Don't you trust us? The word trust hung in the air. Patricia's increasing presence, the constant suggestions, the missing documents, Emma's words echoed. Just because they're family doesn't mean they have your best interests at heart. I forced a smile. Of course I trust you. I just prefer to keep some things separate. James's smile didn't quite reach his eyes. The next dinner at Patricia's mansion was tense. You're being ridiculous, Lisa. We're talking about securing our future, James pressed. Our future or your gambling debts? Michael's voice cut through the tension. Silence fell over the room. What did you just say? I turned to James, who couldn't meet my eyes. Patricia's smile was razor sharp. Oh, did you know? But really, dear, with your condition, wouldn't it be safer if James managed everything? I reached for my medicine. It wasn't there. Where's my medication? Oh, those old pills. I cleaned up earlier. They were expired. They weren't expired, I just refilled them. Panic surged. The room spun. James's voice became distant. She's being hysterical again. Mom. I woke up in the hospital 2 days later, Emma clutching my hand. Thank God, Lisa. You've been out for 2 days. Emma, something's wrong. They're planning something. I know it. She showed me her tablet, her expression grim. Look. Emails between James and Patricia. Once we prove she's mentally unstable, the inheritance will transfer automatically. Michael entered, looking haunted. Lisa, I overheard Mom and James. They're planning to force you to sign everything over. He hesitated. And James has done this before. What do you mean? His first wife, Caroline. She had a substantial inheritance too. She lost everything. Later that night, Diana slipped into my room after visiting hours. Lisa, honey, I've been gathering evidence. Photos, recordings, conversations. Patricia's done this to others. You're not the first, but I'm making sure you'll be the last. Diana's voice was low but resolute. I've been doing some digging. James isn't just gambling. He's committing fraud at his firm, using client money to cover his debts. I felt a chill as the pieces began to fall into place. The late-night calls, the hidden mail, Patricia's orchestrated meetings. She planned this from the start, didn't she? Like a chess game, Michael confirmed grimly. She picked you for your inheritance, your health condition. Figured it'd make you vulnerable. My phone buzzed. A text from James. The doctors say you're confused. Let me handle everything. Then another from Patricia. Darling, I've scheduled a psychological evaluation for your own good. They're moving fast, Emma warned, but so are we. I've secured your accounts and documented everything about the medicine incident. Diana handed over her latest findings. Photos of Patricia with James's first wife, Caroline. Social events where they discussed their problematic daughters-in-law. Audio recordings of Patricia bragging about fixing family problems. I stared out the hospital window, thinking of every time I doubted myself. All the gaslighting. The manipulation. They tried to kill me, I whispered. They did, Emma said grimly. But they didn't count on you having real allies. We'll make this right, Lisa. They won't get away with it. Later, I played my part flawlessly. Of course you're right, James. I should rest more. My voice was soft, compliant, the image of a dutiful, weakened wife. Under the pillow, my phone recorded every word. That's my good girl, James said, kissing my forehead. Mom and I will handle everything. At Emma's office, we examined James' cloud storage. You wouldn't believe what I found. Emma said, eyes wide. Look at these transfers. I scrolled through the documents. He's been stealing from his clients for months. A text from Michael popped up. Mom's on the warpath. She's calling your boss right now. Minutes later, my boss called. Lisa, Patricia Anderson claims you're struggling with mental health issues. Actually, I said calmly, I've been documenting everything, including my medical records. Would you like to see them? Please do, he replied. And Lisa, she's tried this before with other employees. Next, a voice message from Diana. Patricia's telling everyone you're unstable. Don't worry, I've been sharing those honest moments from her charity events. People are starting to see her true colors. Michael met me at a secluded cafe. James lost big again last night, he whispered. He's desperate, taking even bigger risks with client money. How much? Millions, and Mom's helping him hide it. Another text from Emma. Found proof Patricia sabotaged your Marshall account presentation. She called them directly. That deal was worth millions. My whole team lost their bonuses because of her. I muttered, anger boiling. Just then, Robert, my father-in-law, showed up at my office, his hands trembling. I can't stay quiet anymore, he said. Patricia, she's done this before. Not just to Caroline. There were others. Others? 3 failed engagements before James. All wealthy women. All mysteriously unstable by the end. He sighed heavily. I helped cover it up. God forgive me. My laptop pinged, a response from James' office department. Emma Sapoma had uncovered unauthorized transfers and offshore accounts. The SEC will be very interested in this, Emma said over speakerphone. Diana chimed in with new surveillance photos. James entering underground casinos. Patricia meeting with shady lawyers. Documents being shredded. Time to end this, I said, watching James sleep later that night. For weeks, I had been gathering evidence, playing weak, all while preparing my final move. The next day, my phone lit up with updates. Michael, Mom's panicking. The country club just rescinded her membership. Diana, she's losing it, screamed at a charity board meeting. Everyone saw it. Emma, final proof of embezzlement. It's worse than we thought. Robert, I'll testify. It's time. I touched my father's picture on my desk. You taught me to play chess, Dad. Every piece is in place, just waiting for their final mistake. A text from Patricia. Family dinner tomorrow. Important documents to sign. I smiled. They still thought I was their pawn. Game over, I whispered, sending Emma the signal to initiate our endgame. The movers loaded the last box into their truck. Your new place is ready, Lisa, Emma confirmed. James was conveniently out of town at a conference in Chicago, a thinly veiled damage control session with furious clients. My phone buzzed nonstop with headlines. Anderson Financial under SEC investigation. Massive client fund misappropriation uncovered. Turn on the news, I said, savoring the moment. Michael's text flashed on my phone. James is trying to hide from reporters outside his office building. The breaking news ticker scrolled across my TV. Anderson Financial CEO James Anderson accused of embezzling millions. Moments later, Diana called, her voice bubbling with excitement. You should see Patricia. She's at the country club trying to do damage control. They're literally asking her to leave. Patricia's shrill voice echoed through the phone. How dare you cancel my membership? Do you know who I am? Diana's reply was razor sharp. Oh honey, everyone knows exactly who you are now. That evening, the news hit harder. James Anderson arrested on multiple counts of financial fraud. Emma burst into my office, breathless. Patricia's liquidating everything to cover James's debts. She's losing the mansion. A text from Michael followed. The board named me interim CEO. Mom's hysterical, saying it's somehow your fault. But I never reported anything. I smiled. Their own greed had done them in. Weeks passed. My marketing firm thrived and my newly launched foundation, Phoenix Rising, dedicated to supporting survivors of financial abuse, grew stronger every day. Your story has inspired so many, Emma said during our foundation's first meeting. 3 more of James' victims came forward. Diana forwarded me a video. Patricia was being escorted from her social club. She tried charging $50,000 in personal expenses to the charity board. Diana wrote, her tone laced with satisfaction. A letter arrived from Robert. Lisa, I'm sorry I didn't stop them sooner. James got 15 years. Patricia lost everything trying to save him. You were stronger than all of us. Later that evening, my assistant rushed in. Miss William, you've won the Community Leadership Award. Standing on stage, I gazed out at the crowd. Success isn't just about money. It's about surviving, thriving and helping others rise. The applause was thunderous. A text from Diana buzzed. Patricia watched your speech from the community center's TV room. She looked destroyed. I touched the new bottle of heart medication safely stored in my purse. My health had improved dramatically since leaving that toxic environment. Michael's final text arrived. Mom had to sell her last designer bags. She's asking about James's prison visitor list. He declined to add her. I stood by the window of my beautiful new office, looking out over the city. Photos of my foundation's success stories and my firm's growing client list adorned the walls. A framed picture of my dad sat on my desk. You were right, Dad. The best revenge is living well. As I took in the view, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace. They were finally paying for their actions, not because of anything I did, but because their own choices caught up with them. I was free. I was thriving. Some were in a prison cell and a budget retirement home. They were living with the consequences of their choices. That's the thing about karma. It doesn't need your help. It just needs your patience. What would you have done? If you discovered your marriage was orchestrated from the start, would you expose them immediately? Or would you play weak, gather evidence, and let karma run its course like I did? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed my story of survival and justice, don't forget to hit like and subscribe for more real-life stories about overcoming toxic relationships and emerging stronger. Remember, sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's watching them destroy themselves while you thrive. My name's Amy, a 24-year-old junior accountant from Chicago. On the surface, I'm just another young professional trying to make her way. Behind closed doors, I live a nightmare. My controlling mother, Sarah, and my 27-year-old unemployed brother, Mike, treat me like I'm the live-in maid. Every morning starts the same. 5:30 a.m., I'm up, making breakfast. Emmy, where's my coffee? 2 sugars, you know that. Mike's voice bellows from his room. I'm late for work, make it yourself. I snap, slamming a mug onto the counter. Mom, Amy's being disrespectful again. Within seconds, Mom storms into the kitchen, fury in her eyes. Emmy, how many times do I have to tell you to take care of your brother? Make his coffee. Now. This is my reality. I work full-time, pay half the bills, and handle all the housework. Meanwhile, Mike lounges in his gaming chair all day, demanding attention. At work, my exhaustion doesn't go unnoticed. Girl, you look dead, my coworker Rachel says, eyeing me as I shuffle into the office. Rough morning. The usual. Mom made me remake Mike's coffee 3 times because it wasn't perfect enough. I mutter, sinking into my chair. Rachel shakes her head. You need to get out of there. A small kindness saves the day. David, another coworker, sets a cup of steaming coffee on my desk. Thought you might need this. Real coffee, not whatever your brother complains about, he says with a smirk. I smile, clutching the cup like a lifeline. They don't know about my secret savings account. I've been setting aside 30% of every paycheck. Just $55,000 more, and I'll be free. That night, everything boils over. Mike barges into my room, his entitled sneer in full display. Give me your car keys. I'm meeting friends. No way. I need my car for work tomorrow. It's not like your job is important. You're just a junior accountant. At least I have a job. I snap. His face turns crimson. Mom, Amy's disrespecting me again. Mom appears, arms crossed, ready for battle. Amy, give your brother the keys. No, I've had enough. I've been serving him since we were kids. You made me skip my high school graduation to cook for his gaming party. You gave him my college fund because he needed it more. Mom's expression hardens, her voice icy. I'm your mother. As long as you live under my roof. That I help pay for, I interject. Don't interrupt me, your brother is special. He needs support while he figures out his path. Now hand him the keys or start looking for somewhere else to live. I clutch my keys tighter, feeling years of suppressed anger rise to the surface. No, for once in my life no. Mom's gaze turns glacial. Fine, then make your own dinner tonight. And don't touch anything in my kitchen. As they storm out, I sit in the suffocating silence, my phone screen lighting up. $15,000 saved. Just a little longer. I text Rachel. Start looking for those apartment listings. I'm done. But the power play escalates. The next morning, I find every cabinet in the kitchen locked with padlocks. Mom stands there, arms crossed. Until you apologize to your brother and give him your car, you won't be eating in this house. This is insane. I pay for half the groceries. Should have thought about that before disrespecting your brother, she snaps. 3 days pass. I survive on protein bars and snacks I've stashed in my desk at work. My hands shake as I type. During lunch, Rachel notices. Emmy, when's the last time you ate a real meal? She whispers. Sunday, Mom locked the kitchen. Rachel's eyes widen. This is abuse. Before I can respond, my vision blurs. I grab the desk for support, but it's too late. David rushes over, catching me before I hit the ground. In the break room, they force me to eat a sandwich as I recount everything. When Dad died, his insurance was supposed to be split between Mike and me. Mom gave him my share because he needed it more. I had to drop 3 college classes to babysit his dog. It's always been like this. David's jaw tightens. You need evidence. This isn't normal. That night, Mike corners me in the hallway. I press record on my phone, the device hidden in my pocket. Listen here, you ungrateful. Mom should have thrown you out years ago. You're nothing. I'm not just a maid who pays bills. I'm Amy, the maid who's done being used. Get out of my way, Mike. I snap, trying to sidestep him in the hallway. Mom appears right on cue, arms crossed and seething. You will apologize to your brother right now, or you can pack your bags. I won't tolerate this disrespect in my house. Remember who took care of you after your father died. Took care of me. I glare at her, my voice trembling with fury. You stole my inheritance, made me drop out of college, and now you're starving me because I won't let your precious son take my car. Your brother deserves everything he has, she spits back. You're just jealous because he's special. Special? He's a 27-year-old leech. The slap cracks through the hallway. My cheek burns, but inside I'm smiling. I got it all on tape. Later, alone in my room, I play the recording back. My hands shake, but this time it's not from hunger. It's from resolve. Rachel was right. This isn't family. This is abuse. And now I have proof. I forward the recording to Rachel and David, then save it to my secret cloud drive. They want to break me. Fine. But they have no idea I'm already planning their downfall. Each threat, each insult, each slap, they're all evidence. And soon, very soon, they'll learn that karma is a force to be reckoned with. I found the perfect place. Rachel squeals during our lunch break. 2-bedroom apartment, safe neighborhood, and guess what? It's within your budget. David joins us grinning. And I've got even better news. Remember Tom from Johnson & Associates? They're hiring a senior accountant. Pays 40% more than what you're making now. Tears prick my eyes. You guys, my voice cracks with emotion. That night, while organizing Mom's bank statements for the bills, something catches my eye. Large withdrawals from her savings account. Thousands of dollars I never knew existed. Hey Mom, did you authorize these withdrawals? I ask, confronting her as she steps into the kitchen. Her face pales as she snatches the papers from my hand. What were you doing snooping through my accounts? I always handle the bills, remember? There's over $20,000 missing. Her eyes narrow. You've been stealing from me. What? No, I'd never. First you disrespect your brother, and now you're stealing. Get out of my sight. Later that night, while Mom's at her book club, I dig deeper into the accounts. Every trail leads to Mike. Multiple transfers to online gambling sites. Thousands gone. My phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. Is this Amy? I'm Lisa, Mike's ex. I saw your post about looking for an apartment. We meet the next day at a coffee shop. Lisa's hands shake as she slides a folder across the table. Mike scammed me out of $115,000 last year, she says, her voice barely above a whisper. Said he was starting a business. He's done this to 3 other girls. I have proof, bank statements, texts, everything. Why are you telling me this? I ask. Because he's doing it again. I saw him with a new girl last week, using the same lines he used on me. Over the next week, I execute my escape plan. Each day while Mom's at her book club, I move small boxes to my new apartment. Rachel stores my important documents at her place. David helps me prep for my interview at Johnson & Associates. You're the perfect candidate, the hiring manager says. When can you start? That night, while copying files from Mom's computer, I stumble across years of damning evidence, emails about Mike's gambling, Angry messages from scam victims, even screenshots of him bragging about stealing my inheritance. "What are you doing?" Mike's voice startles me. I swivel in my chair, keeping my expression neutral. "Just getting the tax documents Mom asked for." "Better not be snooping, sis. Would be a shame if Mom had to kick you out with nowhere to go." I smile sweetly. "Don't worry, brother dear. Everything's exactly where it should be." In my room, I save all the files to my cloud drive. Mom's financial records showing Mike's theft, Lisa's evidence of his scams, recordings of their abuse, photos of the locked kitchen, my weight loss, and the bruise from Mom's slap. Rachel texts, "Apartment's ready when you are." David follows up, "Job offer coming tomorrow." Lisa updates, "Mike's been arrested. Police found evidence of fraud against 5 women. They're investigating his gambling debts too." I glance around my childhood room, now nearly empty except for the furniture. They thought they were breaking me. Instead, they taught me how to be smarter, stronger, and more cunning. "Are you sure you packed everything?" Rachel asks, helping me load the last box into the moving truck. "Everything that matters." Before we leave, I place a thick manila envelope on Mom's pristine dining table. Inside, evidence of Mike's theft, his fraud schemes, and screenshots of his gambling addiction. 2 days later, my phone explodes with notifications. "You ungrateful witch. Where are you? How dare you abandon your family?" Mom's voice now screams. A text from Lisa makes me smile. "Mike's been arrested. They've got enough to press charges." I sit at my new desk at Johnson Associates when David rushes in. His face is pale. "Your mom's house is crawling with police," he says. Apparently, the neighbors finally reported all the screaming they've heard. Something about an elder abuse investigation. Karma works in mysterious ways. I smile faintly and turn back to my spreadsheets. Months pass. Through Rachel, I hear the fallout. Mom lost the house. Turns out Mike had secretly remortgaged it for his gambling debts, using forged papers. With nowhere else to go, she's forced to move in with Aunt Janet. "You can't just throw your mother away," Aunt Janet scolds over the phone one afternoon. "Sarah made mistakes, but she's still your mother." Mistakes. My voice is calm but firm. "She locked me out of food for days, stole my inheritance, and made me a servant while Mike robbed her blind. She's suffering now. Living with her wasn't easy either." 1 year later, I stand in the living room of my very own home, a cozy townhouse I bought with my promotion bonus. David's arms wrap around me, his engagement ring catching the sunlight streaming through the windows. "Look what came," Rachel says, handing me a tear-stained letter. It's from Mom. "My dearest Amy, I'm sorry for everything. Please come home. I need you." I drop the letter into the shredder without reading further. Through the window, I watch kids playing in the street. Free, happy, safe. Things I never was in that house. "Your mom's still asking about you," David asks, pressing a kiss to my temple. "She's not my mom anymore," I reply, my voice steady. "Just someone who taught me what kind of parent I'll never be." My phone buzzes with a text from Lisa. "Mike got 5 years. Thought you'd want to know." I smile and delete the message. On my desk at work, a shiny new nameplate reads, "Senior Financial Analyst." My fridge is always full. My doors have no locks, except the ones I control. "Ready for dinner?" Rachel calls from the kitchen. David's attempting to cook. "Hey, I'm getting better." David protests. I laugh, really laugh, the kind of laugh that was never allowed in my old house. They thought they were breaking me. Instead, they showed me my own strength. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about getting free. And me? I'm finally gloriously free. What would you do if faced with the choice between financial stability and confronting a toxic family member? Would you stay silent to keep a roof over your head, or risk it all to stand up for yourself like I did? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, consider subscribing to hear more stories of survival and justice. Sometimes the hardest battles are fought behind closed doors, but you are not alone. Hi, I'm Ashley Michael, a 28-year-old financial analyst at Morgan Stanley. While I take pride in my career, my heart has always been tied to our family business. You really should let me help with the books, Dad. I do this for a living. Everything's fine, Princess. Mark's got it handled. That exchange at our weekly family dinner churned my stomach. My father, Thomas Michael, wasn't just being stubborn. Something was off. At 58, he should have been basking in the success of Michael Auto Parts, the business he built from a single store into a 12-location chain spanning 3 states. Instead, dark circles shadowed his eyes, and his hands trembled when holding his fork. Your brother's doing great managing the finances. Focus on your own career, Dad added. Sure, if great meant running 3 previous businesses into the ground. Mark, my older brother and Dad's golden child, joined the family business 5 years ago after his latest failed startup. Even after Mom passed when we were kids, Mark could do no wrong in Dad's eyes. Ashley, you won't believe what I found reviewing those contracts you mentioned. Lisa's voice crackled over the phone later that night. My best friend and corporate lawyer had an uncanny knack for sniffing out trouble. Please tell me it's good news, I said. Not exactly. The paperwork is strange. Like really strange. Determined to get answers, I stopped by the flagship store that week. Mike, the longtime manager, pulled me aside. Miss Ashley, something ain't right. Your brother's been having meetings after hours. What kind of meetings? I asked. The kind where folks don't look like they're here to buy car parts, if you know what I mean. Just then, Mark's wife, Helen, waltzed in, dripping with new jewelry. Oh, didn't expect to see you here. Don't you have your own job to worry about? She sneered. Nice bracelet, Helen. Must have cost a fortune. Mark takes care of me, she replied, her voice sugary sweet. Unlike some people, I know how to be grateful to this family. That night at dinner, I watched Dad push his food around his plate while Mark bragged about his latest business strategy. Mom would have seen right through this. She used to say family secrets were like engine problems. Ignore them, and everything falls apart. The quarterly numbers look fantastic, Mark announced, grinning. But Dad's hand shook as he reached for his wine. Maybe I could take a look, I offered. Back off, Ashley, Mark snapped. You're not part of this. Dad's face paled. Ashley, please, just trust us to handle this. I nodded, but deep down, I knew something was very wrong. The first red flag was the missing delivery trucks, 3 of them gone, with no paperwork explaining where or why. During a walkthrough of the warehouse, Mike grabbed my arm. Miss Ashley, your brother's been having more of those late meetings. Last night, some guys in fancy suits showed up. They weren't looking for spark plugs. Thanks, Mike. Keep an eye out for me, I said. As I headed to Dad's office, shouting stopped me in my tracks. Where's the rest of it, Mark? They're not going to wait forever. Dad's voice was laced with panic. I'll handle it. Just keep quiet and let me fix this, Mark yelled back. Peeking through the crack in the door, I saw Dad gripping his desk, his face ashen. Mark paced the room, running his hands through his hair, his telltale sign of losing control. Days later, Helen sauntered into the store with a new designer bag dangling from her arm. Look what Mark bought me, she gloated. Isn't he the most generous husband? That's quite a spending spree you're on, Helen. Business must be booming. Oh, honey, you have no idea. Maybe if you weren't so busy playing detective, you'd actually find someone to spoil you too. Helen's words rang in my ears long after she left. That evening, I waited until the store emptied before slipping into Dad's office. My heart sank when I found the note in his drawer. Time's running out. Pay up, or everyone learns the truth. Dad, we need to talk about this, I said the next day, confronting him. Everything's fine, Ashley. Please just stay out of it, he insisted. You've lost $15 million in 2 months. That's not fine. Before Dad could respond, Mark stormed into the office, his eyes blazing. Why can't you just mind your own business? He barked. Mark, stop. Dad's voice trembled. No, she needs to back off. His words carried a weight I couldn't ignore. That night, I called Lisa. I need your help. Something's seriously wrong, and I think Mark's involved in something illegal, I told her. Send me everything. Bank statements, inventory reports, all of it, Lisa said. And Ashley, be careful. This feels bigger than just cooking the books. Lisa and I worked late into the night, poring over documents spread across her dining room table. Holy crap, she muttered, pointing to a stack of invoices. These are fake. Mark's been inflating parts orders to funnel money through the business. I sifted through bank statements, my hands shaking. Look at these withdrawals, $50,000 here, $30,000 there. Where's it all going? Lisa's face darkened. These amounts match deposits at Crown Casino. Ashley, your brother's got gambling debts. Big ones. Mike, the store manager, later confirmed what we feared. He captured footage of Mark meeting shady men in suits at 2 a.m., money exchanging hands. And Dad, he looked terrified in the background. There's more, Lisa said, pulling up Helen's bank records. Your sister-in-law has offshore accounts. They've been hiding assets. Then my phone buzzed. It was Mike. They're here again, he whispered. Your brother's screaming at your dad about some payment being due. Miss Ashley, they mentioned your name. I raced to the store. When I arrived, I found Dad slumped in his office chair, tears streaming down his face. Daddy, please tell me what's happening, I begged. I can't, he whispered, his voice breaking. He said he'd hurt you. Who? These people Mark owes money to. They're dangerous. If I didn't help cover his debts, they'd come after you first. How much does he owe? $2 million. The gambling, the drugs, I've been selling everything I can. But it's not enough. They gave us until Friday. Before I could respond, the office door slammed open. Mark stood there, his face twisted with rage. You just couldn't leave it alone, could you? Had to play detective. How could you do this to Dad? To the business? Mom wailed. Shut up, he roared. You don't understand what's at stake. I understand you're a pathetic addict, I snapped. You'd rather threaten your own family than face the consequences. Mark, please, Dad pleaded. We can find another way. There is no other way, Mark shouted. His finger jabbed toward me. And you've ruined everything. Helen just called the bank. She froze our accounts. What did you do? He spat. What you should have done years ago, I shot back. I'm protecting this family. Mark lunged at me, but Dad stepped between us. Touch her, and I'll call them myself, Dad said, his voice firm. It's over, son. Mark's face hardened. You're both dead to me. When they come collecting, don't expect me to protect you anymore. He stormed out, slamming the door behind him. Through the window, I watched as he climbed into a black SUV, the same one from the security footage. Dad, pack a bag, I said, my voice steady. You're staying with me tonight. Tears streamed down his face as he nodded. Ashley, I'm so sorry. I thought I could handle it. We'll fix this, I told myself. But first, I needed to make some calls. Sometimes, karma just needs a little push. Taking a deep breath, I hit send. The anonymous email detailing Helen's offshore accounts went straight to Mark's business associates. 3 days later, Helen stormed into the store, her face red and streaked with tears. They took everything. The cars, the jewelry, my bags. Mark, what did you do? She screamed. Shut up. Just shut up. Mark's face turned purple with rage. Someone told him about our accounts. They're threatening to break my legs. Helen didn't flinch. I want a divorce. My lawyer's already drawing up the papers. The next morning, 2 IRS agents showed up at the store. Someone, definitely not Lisa, had tipped them off about years of unreported income. The fraud department from our insurance company wasn't far behind. Your brother's going away for a while, Lisa told me over coffee later that week. Tax evasion, funny how that always gets them. Al Capone went down the same way. Meanwhile, Dad was busy signing new ownership papers, officially making Mike a full partner. I should have trusted you from the start, Princess, Dad said, his voice heavy with regret. Mark, he stopped being my son the moment he threatened you. Dad, the business is going to be fine, I reassured him. Our new inventory system is already showing better profits. A few days later, my phone buzzed with a restricted number. Mark's voice crackled through the line. Ashley, please, I'm facing serious time. I'm sorry for everything. I didn't reply. I hung up and blocked the number. 6 months later, Dad and I stood together in the newly renovated flagship store. The fresh sign outside read, Michael and Sons Auto Parts. Family owned since 1985. Your mother would be proud, Dad said, squeezing my hand. She always said you had her business sense. Mike mentioned casually, we got a postcard. From Mark's ex-wife. She's in Miami now, living with some rich developer. Mark? He's looking at 8 years minimum. I tossed the postcard in the trash. Some people call it karma. I call it justice. The business is thriving now. Dad's smiling again, teaching Mike everything he knows. And me? I still run the books, but differently than Mark ever did. Every dollar accounted for, every transaction clean. Last week, I got another letter from Mark. I didn't even open it. Some bridges aren't meant to be rebuilt. You ever miss him? Dad asked during our weekly family dinner. I miss who I thought he was, I admitted. But that person never really existed. We raised our glasses to family, the real kind. The kind that builds you up instead of tearing you down. Mark's old office is my workspace now. Sometimes karma does need a push, but once it starts rolling, you'd better get out of its way. What would you do if you discovered your sibling was hiding crimes and threatening your family to keep it secret? Would you expose them immediately or try to handle it quietly? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your stories of dealing with toxic family members and how you protected yourself and your loved ones. If this story of standing up to betrayal resonated with you, hit subscribe for more real stories about overcoming toxic relationships and finding justice. New videos every week about survival, revenge, and coming out stronger. Don't forget to like and share if you enjoyed this story of karma finally catching up to those who deserve it. Hi, I'm Melissa, a 37-year-old real estate agent in suburban Chicago. And let me tell you, life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect it. Like, what do you do when your husband's estranged daughter suddenly shows up, claiming half of your house? 7 years ago, I met Tom at a client appreciation event. He was charming, successful, and refreshingly honest about his past. He was a divorced dad raising his son Jason alone after his ex-wife, Anna, walked out. We clicked immediately, and within a year, we were married. You've brought so much light back into our lives, Tom told me one evening as we painted what would become Jason's gaming room in our new house. I found the fixer-upper, and we pooled our savings to turn it into our dream home. I'll never forget Jason's reaction when he saw his finished room. This is seriously the coolest thing ever. Can we add LED strips to the ceiling? He asked with a grin. Jason and I have had an amazing relationship ever since. He's 16 now, into coding and basketball. And we have a weekly tradition of Sunday pancake competitions. Last week, he made a pancake that looked like his math teacher, complete with syrup glasses. But not everything has been pancakes and paint swatches. Tom's mother, Margaret, has always been challenging. Last month at dinner, she couldn't resist her usual routine. Sarah would have loved this house. Such a shame she's not here to enjoy it, she said, referring to Tom's daughter. Then she added, Anna only left because Tom worked too much. I took a deep breath and changed the subject like always. Sarah is a complicated part of Tom's past. She was 12 when Anna left, and she's 26 now. Despite my efforts to reach out, Christmas invites, birthday cards, texts, Sarah has always kept her distance. Maybe next time, she'd say, but that next time never came. Thank goodness for my support system. Yesterday, over coffee on our shared patio, I vented to my neighbor Claire. You've done everything you can, Melissa. Some people just don't want to be reached, she said. Melissa, you're literally the most patient person I know, added Jessica, my colleague and close friend, who'd stopped by with some contracts. What can I do? She's family now, I sighed, sipping my coffee. Even if every holiday dinner with Margaret is a reminder of how Sarah would have decorated differently, at least Tom has my back. Just last week, he told his mom, Melissa is my wife and Jason's stepmom. She's family. Either treat her with respect or we'll need to rethink these weekly dinners. But nothing could have prepared me for what happened next. One quiet Sunday morning, the doorbell rang. When I opened the door, there stood Sarah, with 2 oversized suitcases, looking nothing like her glamorous Instagram photos. Daddy, I'm home, she cried, rushing past me and into Tom's arms. My acting career didn't work out, and I need a place to stay. Before I could process what was happening, Margaret appeared as if summoned by Sarah's return, like a fairy godmother with an agenda. Of course you'll stay here, sweetheart. This is your home too, she cooed, turning to Tom. Tell her this is her home. I saw the guilt flood Tom's face as he said, Of course, princess. Stay as long as you need. Later that night, I tried reasoning with Tom. We should help her find her own place. The guest room isn't a long-term solution. She's my daughter, Melissa. I wasn't there for her before, he said, shutting the conversation down. Within a week, Sarah called a family meeting. She spread papers across our dining table, her voice sharp. This house should be half mine. It's my birthright as Daddy's firstborn. I deserve a stake in the family property. I couldn't believe my ears. Sarah, Tom, and I bought this house together. We renovated the house ourselves. Oh please, Sarah scoffed, rolling her eyes. Everyone knows you manipulated Dad into buying it. Right? Margaret chimed in, perched smugly at the dining table. It does seem convenient how a real estate agent managed to snag both my son and a luxury home. The manipulation didn't stop with Tom, it extended to Jason. One afternoon, I overheard Margaret whispering to him, "Don't you think it's weird how she tries to act like your mom? She probably just wanted a ready-made family to control." That evening, Jason barely spoke to me at dinner, and my heart broke. Then, things started disappearing. First, my grandmother's pearl necklace vanished from my jewelry box. Then, I caught Sarah rifling through our home office. "What are you doing?" I demanded. "Just looking for Dad's old photos," she replied, shoving papers into her bag. The final straw came during Friday dinner when Sarah and Margaret tag-teamed Tom. "Daddy, I need a fresh start," Sarah began. "The house has so much equity, Tom," Margaret interrupted. "Refinancing would barely impact your monthly payments." Sarah needs her father's help. Tom hesitated, his guilt written all over his face. "We could take out enough for her debts and maybe a small business loan," he mused. I stood abruptly, my hands trembling. "We're not refinancing our home. This has gone too far." "You're so selfish," Sarah cried, her voice shrill. "This is why Mom left. Dad always chooses other women over his real family." I watched Tom crumble under the weight of her words, but something in me snapped. This wasn't just about a house anymore. It was about saving my family from being torn apart by manipulation and lies. When my diamond earrings disappeared, I decided enough was enough. With Claire's help, I discreetly installed tiny cameras throughout the common areas. Then came the email that changed everything. Subject: "You need to know the truth about Sarah. Jake Martinez." Jake, Sarah's ex from LA, reached out over video chat. She convinced my parents to invest in her acting career and took them for $30,000. "You're not the first family she's tried to squeeze." Claire, being her usual resourceful self, helped me dig deeper. "Melissa, look at this," she said, pointing at her laptop. 2 lawsuits in California, both from former roommates accusing her of stealing their identities to take out loans. She's got over $50,000 in judgments against her. Then, one night, while reviewing security footage, I overheard Sarah and Margaret in the kitchen. "Once we get the refinancing done, we'll make her so miserable she'll leave on her own," Margaret said. "Tom will have to choose between his wife and daughter. And when she's gone, we'll convince him to put the house in your name, sweetheart. It's what your mother would have wanted." My heart stopped when I heard Jason's voice from the doorway. "What did you just say about my mom?" Sarah, oblivious, laughed later in the living room with her friends. "God, my replacement brother is such a pain. Dad only had him because he couldn't handle losing me. Poor substitute kid." That night, Jason hugged me tightly. "You're my real mom, Melissa. The one who actually stayed." The turning point came when I confronted Sarah about a missing check from Tom's business account. I found her rifling through our home office again. "Get out of my private papers," I snapped. "Private?" she retorted, shoving me hard against the desk. "This is my father's house." The cameras caught everything: her assault, her rummaging through documents, even her pocketing Tom's checkbook. Later, under her mattress, I discovered copies of forged checks totaling over $20,000. "I got her," I texted Claire. "But we need to handle this carefully." I gathered every piece of evidence: Jake's testimony, the lawsuits, the security footage, and the forged checks. The final blow came when I checked our bank statements. Sarah had already cashed 3 forged checks at different branches. Tom was in his study when I showed him the file. As he flipped through the evidence, his face shifted from shock to anger to heartbreak. "No more enabling. No more guilt," he said quietly. "Call the police." We held a family meeting that night, with Margaret and Sarah seated at the dining table. I placed the thick folder of evidence in front of them. "Before anyone speaks," I said, "you need to see this." I laid everything out: photos of Sarah stealing, video footage of the assault, the forged checks, and Jake's testimony. "You wouldn't dare use this against me," Sarah hissed. "Daddy, she's trying to turn you against me." Jason stepped forward, his hands shaking. Stop calling him that. You don't care about this family, you only care about yourself. Tom hesitated for a moment, then pulled out his phone. Jason, show her what she said, he said quietly. Jason didn't need to be asked twice. He played the video of Sarah mocking him as a replacement child. Her voice echoed through the room like a dagger slicing through the air. Before anyone could react, my phone buzzed on the table. I answered on speaker. It was Jake. Melissa, he said, his tone grave. The LAPD wants to talk to Sarah about a rental scam. Turns out she took deposits from 12 families for the same property. It's all catching up to her. Sarah's eyes darted around wildly. You're all against me, she screamed, lunging toward the pile of evidence on the table. Tom caught her by the arm, his voice firm. That's enough, Sarah. I've seen everything I need to see. Minutes later, the police arrived. Sarah's face twisted with rage as they led her out in cuffs. Margaret, ever the master manipulator, tried one last desperate play. I'll go to the church board, she threatened. Everyone will know how you've destroyed this family. But Claire stepped in with the precision of a practiced lawyer. Funny you should mention the church, Margaret, she said, her voice cutting through the room like steel. Their annual audit found some interesting transfers from the charity fund to Sarah's accounts. Care to explain? Margaret's perfect facade crumbled in an instant. I was helping a family member in need. By stealing from homeless shelters, Claire shot back, unimpressed. Tom's voice turned ice cold. Both of you, get out of my house. Now. In the weeks that followed, the fallout was swift and unforgiving. Sarah faced charges in 2 states, with no chance of probation this time. Margaret's church friends learned of her role in enabling Sarah's schemes, and her carefully cultivated social status crumbled. One Sunday, Jason smirked over breakfast. Mom, you should have seen Grandma at church. She has to sit alone in the back row. No one will even look at her. Sarah's court date came quickly. Tom and I sat side by side as the judge read out the charges: forgery, fraud, assault, and more. The weight of her actions finally caught up to her. That evening, sitting on our porch swing, Tom took my hand in his. I'm sorry I ever doubted you, he said, his voice thick with emotion. You fought for this family when I was too blinded by guilt to see the truth. 6 months later, life settled into a new rhythm. Jason made the honor roll and started a coding club at school. Tom's business flourished, and I launched a program teaching women about real estate investment and financial independence. One day, I helped a woman buy her first house after leaving a toxic marriage. As I handed her the keys, she hugged me tightly. How did you know exactly what I needed? She asked. Let's just say I understand toxic people, I replied with a smile. Sometimes the best revenge is building a beautiful life without them. Sarah wrote once from prison, a manipulative plea that went straight into the shredder. Margaret, now living alone, lost her church position and her carefully curated reputation. Oh, we didn't look back. Sometimes you have to lose the family you thought you needed to protect the one you actually have. Reflection. What would you do if someone you trusted was secretly scheming to take everything you've worked for? Would you expose them immediately or try to protect the ones you love from the harsh truth? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Hi, I'm Barbara, a 29-year-old interior designer from Chicago. Trust me, this story will show you that family isn't always what it seems. Honey, I think those modern pendant lights you picked would look perfect here, James says, watching me arrange furniture in our latest project, a luxury penthouse. That's my fiancé, always cheering me on. You're just saying that because you want to sell this place faster, I tease, though inside, I'm glowing. We're a dream team. He develops properties, I design them. Then my phone buzzes. Mom. Barbara, don't forget your brother's promotion party tonight. Don't be late like last time. I had a client meeting, Mom. Some of us actually work for what we achieve. Don't start with that attitude, she snaps. Tyler worked hard to become VP at your father's company. Hard work? Sure, like the time in high school when he took credit for my art project and won first place. Or when he convinced Dad not to fund my first design studio. But Tyler's always been the golden child. Later at the party, I'm showing Sarah, Tyler's wife, my wedding dress sketches. I'm having the family diamonds sewn into the neckline. Mom finally agreed. That's wonderful, Sarah says, her smile tight as her eyes flicked to my engagement ring. Baby sis, Tyler slurs, stumbling over, whiskey heavy on his breath. Still playing with your little decoration business. It's called interior design, Tyler. And for your information, I just landed the Peterson contract. Dad cuts in, frowning. The Peterson contract? I was going to refer them to Thompson Designs. I got it on my own, Dad. Not everything has to come through you. Tyler sneers. Speaking of connections, I need to borrow some cash. Just temporary. Again? Sarah hisses, gripping her drink. We talked about this. Later, I catch Tyler on the phone in the garden. I'll get your money. Just give me more time. Back at the bar, Jane slides up beside me. Your mom's asking about wedding plans. She seems intense. Wait till you see the dress. Vintage Vera Wang, modernized with the family diamonds. Mom nearly fainted when I suggested it. I laugh. James chuckles. As long as you're happy, though your brother seemed very interested in those diamonds. Tyler's always interested in anything valuable that isn't his, I say, watching him across the room, charming investors while Sarah clutches her drink alone. That's my family, picture perfect on the outside, rotting on the inside. But soon, I'll have my own family with James, my own life. If only I'd known what was coming. The morning of my wedding week, the estate was buzzing with family and guests. It should have been exciting. Instead, I woke to my worst nightmare. No, my scream echoed down the hall. There it was, my wedding dress. Shredded, drenched in what looked like red wine. The family diamonds, gone. What's going on? Mom rushed in, still in her robe. She froze, her gasp sharp and calculating. Barbara, what have you done? What have I done? This is my wedding dress. Why would I destroy it? She crossed her arms. The insurance policy you insisted on last week. That was your idea. You said I needed coverage for the diamonds. James burst into the room, followed by Tyler and Sarah. Babe, what happened? Someone destroyed my dress and stole the diamonds. I checked the security footage, Tyler announced. It's gone. Strange timing, huh, sis? What are you implying? I demanded. Tyler smirked, pulling out his phone. You've been researching insurance fraud. He held up screenshots of my supposed browser history. That's impossible. I didn't. And then there's this. He hit play on a recording. My own voice echoed in the room. The diamonds alone are worth enough to start over. It was from a conversation with Madison about starting my own firm. I protested, blaring at Tyler. Completely out of context. James stepped back, his face clouded with doubt. Barbara, just tell me the truth. You can't seriously believe this, I snapped. I'm being set up. Dad stormed into the room, his voice thunderous. The police are on their way. This is criminal, Barbara. I stared at him in disbelief. You called the police on me? Alina, our housekeeper, hovered by the door, wringing her hands. Miss Barbara was in her room all night. I brought her tea at midnight. Stay out of this, Elena, Mom snapped, her tone icy. Shaking, I held Madison. They're all against me, I sobbed. Even James is believing them. Girl, something's not right, Madison replied sharply. Tyler was acting weird at the rehearsal dinner. Stay put, I'm coming. The police arrived soon after, taking statements as I sat helplessly. The detective gave me a skeptical look. Miss, your family's evidence is quite compelling. Evidence they fabricated, I muttered, but it felt like no one was listening. Later, Sarah approached me with fake sympathy dripping from her voice. Maybe if you confess, they'll go easier on you. I fixed her with a cold stare. I think you know exactly what happened, Sarah. She flinched, just slightly, before walking away. By the time James found me packing my bags, I was done. The wedding's off, isn't it? I said, not bothering to look at him. Barbara, he hesitated. They're your family. Why would they lie? Because they've been doing it my whole life, and you never wanted to see it, I said, my voice breaking. Madison burst in like a hurricane, her presence a lifeline. I'm getting you out of here. Something stinks, and it's not just your brother's cheap cologne. As I left, Mom's voice followed me. If you walk away now, don't bother coming back. Don't worry, Mother. I won't. Elena slipped me a folded note as I passed. I saw something last night. Call me. Dad's voice was the last thing I heard before the door closed. You're making a big mistake, young lady. We can still fix this if you admit what you did. Madison's dining table was covered in papers, bank statements, transaction logs, and screenshots. Living with her this past week had been my saving grace. Tyler's been moving money around like a shell-game artist, Madison said, pushing a statement toward me. My hands trembled as I scanned the documents. These withdrawals, they're always right before his business trips. And these deposits, Lucky Star Gaming, Royal Flush Casino. My phone buzzed. It was Elena. Miss Barbara, she whispered, her voice shaky. I need to tell you something. Last night wasn't the first time. What do you mean? I asked, gripping the phone tightly. Mr. Tyler, he's been having these calls late at night in the garden. Last week, I heard him begging someone for more time. They said something about breaking legs. He was crying. Did you tell my parents? They don't listen to the help, miss. But there's more. The night your dress was destroyed, I heard him again. He said, "It's done. You'll get your payment tomorrow." Madison's eyes widened. Barbara, look at this. She pointed at more records. Tyler's been visiting First Choice Pawn every Tuesday for the past month. The family diamonds. And this deposit, I said, my heart sinking. It's massive, and it's the day after my dress was destroyed. My phone dinged with a text from Sarah. We need to talk. Tyler's acting strange. Don't respond, Madison warned. It could be another setup. Before I could decide, Tyler's name flashed on my screen. Against my better judgment, I answered, putting it on speaker. Madison hit record. You need to back off, Tyler hissed. Or what? I shot back. Going to destroy another dress. Listen here, he snarled. You have no idea what you're dealing with. Keep digging, and things will get a lot worse than a ruined wedding. Are the loan sharks squeezing you that hard, brother dear? His breath caught. You don't know anything. Of what I do, I said, my voice dripping with contempt. First Choice Pawn. The casinos. The late night calls. If you don't shut your mouth, Tyler, your little empire will crumble. Accidents happen, sis, he growled. Consider this your only warning. The line went dead, and Madison was already gathering the evidence. That's it. We're taking this to your parents. Now. Back at my parents' house, it was the same old story. These bank statements are clearly forged, Dad dismissed, barely glancing at the evidence Madison had uncovered. She could have faked them at her job. I played the recording of Tyler's threats, my voice trembling with frustration. Mom actually laughed. You've always been jealous of your brother's success, she said with a smug smile. This is a new low, even for you. He threatened me. I protested. Dad folded his arms. He's under stress, thanks to your baseless accusations. If you drop this nonsense now, we might still salvage this family's reputation. Your reputation? I snapped. What about my life? He's trying to ruin me. You ruined your own life with this insurance scam, Mom shot back. Tyler would never gamble away his future. As if on cue, Tyler strolled in, his corporate mask firmly in place. Still spreading lies, sis. I didn't respond. Instead, I turned my phone toward him, hitting play on the casino security footage Madison had dug up. His face went white. Get out of my house, Dad thundered, pointing to the door, and take your forged evidence with you. As I walked out, Tyler's phone rang. He hesitated before answering. Mr. Chang, please, he whispered, his voice cracking. I just need one more day. I smiled. The walls were closing in on my dear brother, whether my parents wanted to see it or not. 6 months later, I stood in what would soon be Chicago's hottest new restaurant, surveying the exposed brick walls and industrial accents. This detail is exactly what this space needed, I told my newest client. My phone buzzed. David, still on for dinner. I've got some interesting news about your family's company. Dating a district attorney has its perks, especially one who understands toxic family dynamics. Madison's matchmaking skills, as always, were spot on. 3 guys in leather jackets showed up at your dad's office today, David told me over dinner. Security had to escort them out. They were shouting about Tyler's debts. The next morning, the Chicago Tribune headline read, Harrison family business under investigation for massive fraud. Madison's bank had uncovered years of embezzlement. Later that day, Elena called. Miss Barbara, remember the backup system Mr. Harrison had installed last year? I saved all the footage. The police have Tyler on camera destroying your dress. My phone rang again. Mom, Decline. Then Dad. Decline. A text from Tyler. Please, I need help. They're going to arrest me. By evening, every channel was covering the story. Prominent Chicago family in shambles. VP son faces criminal charges. I sat in my new office, thinking about the scared girl who once begged for her family's approval. She's gone now. My first mentee arrived, a young designer with big dreams. As I shared my story, teaching her to recognize red flags and value herself, I realized something profound. Sometimes, losing everything is life's way of showing you what you never needed in the first place. And now, I have a question for you. What would you do if your entire family united against you and the person you were about to marry started doubting you? Would you fight to prove your innocence like I did? Or would you walk away and start fresh without looking back? Let me know in the comments below. Your support means everything to this channel. If you'd like to hear more stories about overcoming toxic family dynamics and emerging stronger, don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on notifications. I read every comment and can't wait to hear your thoughts. Where do you draw the line between forgiveness and self-preservation? Would you give your parents a second chance after everything fell apart? Let's talk about it. Hi, everyone. I'm Anna Tristan, an interior designer, and I want to share how my dream kitchen, the culmination of years of hard work, unexpectedly turned into a source of family drama. After 6 years of saving every penny and working overtime, my husband Mark and I finally bought our dream home. It wasn't perfect, it needed a lot of work. But to us, it was everything. Finally, our daughter Emma could have a backyard to play in, and I could unleash my creativity as a designer. Babe, I know it's over budget, but these Italian marble countertops will make the kitchen, I told Mark during the renovation. He smiled, always trusting me, and said, "You're the expert. If you say it's worth it, I believe you." The kitchen became my pride and joy. Custom maple cabinets, professional-grade appliances, and a spacious island where the whole family could gather. It wasn't just a kitchen, it was my masterpiece. And for a while, it was perfect. Emma and I baked cookies every weekend, her little face covered in flour as she said, "Mommy, I love how big the counters are." But then the visits started. Mark's mother, Barbara, began dropping by unannounced, always around dinner time. "Oh, Hannah dear, these countertops must have cost a fortune. I hope Mark isn't working himself to death to pay for all this luxury," she'd say with a smile that never quite reached her eyes. Soon, Mark's sister Sarah, fresh from her divorce, started showing up too. She'd sit at the island, running her hands over the marble. "This kitchen is amazing, Anna," she'd sigh dramatically. "After everything I've been through, I can only dream of having something like this." Her visits became more frequent and more intrusive. One Tuesday evening, as I prepped dinner, Sarah showed up with her kids unannounced. "Mom, Aunt Sarah's here," Emma called out excitedly. The door was unlocked. "I hope you don't mind," Sarah said breezily, walking in like she owned the place. "I just had to show my realtor friend your kitchen." She couldn't believe it when I described it. "Your realtor friend?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. "Oh, just getting some professional opinions. This layout is exactly what I've been looking for." I caught her taking photos when she thought I wasn't looking. The knot in my stomach tightened. That night, I overheard her on the phone in our driveway. "Mom, you should see how perfect it is. I know they worked hard for it, but after everything I've been through, don't I deserve something nice too?" When I told Mark, he dismissed it. "You're overthinking, Anna. They're just admiring your work." But something felt off. Barbara's lingering stares, Sarah's comments, it wasn't admiration. It was envy. Sunday dinner was the final straw. "A fresh start is exactly what Sarah needs right now," Barbara announced casually, "and your house would be perfect for her." I choked on my wine. "Excuse me?" "Mom, we've talked about this. We're not selling," Mark said firmly, but I noticed he avoided eye contact with Sarah. Barbara waved him off. "Oh, come on, Mark. Anna's expensive tastes must be bleeding you dry. Those marble countertops alone probably cost more than Sarah's first car." "Actually, I got them at a designer discount," I said, trying to keep my cool. "Designer discount or not, I heard some hefty withdrawals have been made lately," Barbara added smugly. "Small town, sweetie. People talk." I froze. Was she talking to bank tellers about our finances? That evening my cousin Amy called. "Anna, is everything okay? Barbara was at bridge club saying Mark's working 2 jobs to cover your spending." What? I nearly dropped the phone. That's not true. Where is she getting this? The next day, Sarah showed up unannounced again. Madison, Tyler, she called to her kids. Go help yourselves to anything in the kitchen. Anna always keeps it stocked. The good snacks? This isn't a convenience store, Sarah, I said through gritted teeth, watching her kids raid my pantry like it was their personal treasure trove. Family helps family, right? She replied, unfazed. Speaking of which, I had my realtor draw up an offer. It's below market value, but considering my situation, we're not selling. Period. I cut her off, my voice sharp. Don't be selfish, Anna. You can just design another kitchen somewhere else. I was still seething when Thursday's family dinner delivered the ultimate bombshell. Barbara stood up, tapping her wine glass with a spoon like she was announcing an engagement. I have wonderful news, she exclaimed, beaming. Sarah and the kids will be staying here while their rental gets fumigated. My fork clattered onto my plate. Absolutely not. It's just for a few weeks, Sarah chimed in, clearly delighted. The kids already picked their rooms. You did what? My voice trembled with anger. Mark finally found his voice. Mom, Sarah, you can't just decide these things without asking us. Oh, honey, Barbara said, feigning hurt. I knew Anna would overreact. This is why everyone says she's so materialistic. Heaven forbid she share her precious kitchen. Get out, I whispered, my voice shaking. Then louder, get out of my house. Barbara dabbed her eyes with a napkin, playing the victim. See how she treats family, Mark? Your sister needs help and your wife only thinks about herself. That night, Mark and I had our first real fight about his family. Maybe we could help them out for just a few weeks, he suggested hesitantly. Are you serious? They're manipulating you. Can't you see that? They're still my family, Anna. And what am I? The evil wife who won't share. They're spreading rumors about us. At the bank, at the bridge club, they're trying to force us out of our own home. You're being paranoid. No, I'm being smart. This isn't about helping Sarah. This is about taking what's ours. I stormed upstairs, slamming the bedroom door behind me. My mind raced. I needed proof, something concrete to show Mark what his mother and sister were really up to. The next morning, as I rifled through my jewelry box, my heart sank. What do you mean my tennis bracelet is missing? I muttered to myself. Worse, our house documents had vanished too. After a sleepless night, I called Linda, a private investigator a colleague had recommended. The retainer fee is steep, Linda warned during our coffee meeting. I don't care, I said. Something's not right, and I need to know what it is. 2 weeks later, Linda called. You better sit down for this, she said. Remember Sarah's sob story about her ex-husband David being a controlling jerk? Yeah, I said cautiously. Well, turns out it's the other way around. She was embezzling thousands from their business accounts. David agreed to a quiet divorce in exchange for dropping the charges. I felt sick. There's more, Linda continued. Your mother-in-law and sister-in-law have a history. Remember Aunt Patricia's house? The one Sarah lived in briefly before it was sold. Mark said Patricia wanted to help Sarah get back on her feet. Patricia didn't do anything. Barbara, acting as her power of attorney, forced the sale while Patricia was in the hospital. The money disappeared into Barbara's accounts. I gripped the edge of the table, trying to steady myself. They've done this before. 3 other family members, Linda confirmed, same pattern. Sarah plays the victim, Barbara manipulates the situation, and properties get sold under market value. That evening, I discovered the missing documents in Sarah's forgotten purse. Just helping organize, she claimed, but her face paled when a small jewelry bag fell out. Organizing what exactly? My jewelry? I asked, holding up the bag. Don't be ridiculous. That's mine. Funny, I said, opening the bag. It has my initials engraved on it. Care to explain? She fled, but not before I snapped photos of everything. Later, I confronted Barbara alone. I know about Aunt Patricia's house, I said coldly. I have no idea what you're talking about, she replied, but the flicker of panic in her eyes gave her away. The power of attorney. The missing money. Ring any bells? You're delusional, she snapped. No one will believe you over family. David might, I said. I hear he's still interested in those missing company funds. For the first time, real fear flashed across her face. That night, I laid everything out for Mark. The documents, The photos, Linda's report. I don't want to believe this, he whispered, staring at the evidence. They were planning this before Sarah's divorce. They targeted us, our home, just like they did to Patricia and the others. But we need to be smart about this, Mark said, his voice steady. I trust you, Jess, and I'm so sorry I didn't believe you sooner. As we stayed up late strategizing, something became clear. This wasn't just about protecting our home anymore. It was about justice, not just for us, but for Patricia and everyone else they'd hurt. And I knew exactly how to ensure they never did this to another family again. 3 weeks later, we sat at the kitchen island, the one they tried so hard to steal, watching the aftermath unfold. Social media notifications, pinged, and family gossip filled our phones. Did you see Barbara's Facebook post? I asked Mark, showing him my screen. She's taking a sabbatical to focus on herself. Basically, she's running away to Florida. Mark smirked. After what James found about Patricia's will? Not surprising. The family group chat is on fire. My phone buzzed again, a text from Linda. Sarah just got served. Embezzlement charges and custody papers. David's lawyer says it's airtight. Mom, is Aunt Sarah going to jail? Emma asked, wandering in with her breakfast bowl. No, sweetie, I said, kneeling beside her. But she might have to make up for some of the mistakes she's made. The doorbell rang. Standing there was Barbara, looking desperate. Please, he begged. You have to help Sarah. She can't lose the kids. We're family. Mark stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. Family? Family doesn't steal. Family doesn't manipulate. Family doesn't try to force people out of their homes. I was only trying to... To what, Mom? Mark interrupted. Steal another house? Like you did to Aunt Patricia. That was different, Barbara snapped, her tone defensive. Get out, Mark said quietly, and don't contact us again. Later that evening, Amy called with updates. Sarah's kids are staying with David now, she said. She's facing serious charges, and no one in the family is willing to help her. Oh, and Barbara's been kicked out of her bridge club. Apparently, stealing from your elderly aunt doesn't sit well with polite society. Months passed. My design business thrived. Turns out, showcasing my dream kitchen attracted high-end clients. Mark got promoted, and Emma's grades improved now that the house was free of toxic drama. One evening, while I was prepping dinner, Mark wrapped his arms around me from behind. Thank you, he said softly, for fighting for us, for seeing what I couldn't. We fought together, I replied, leaning into him. That's what real family does. Cookie time, Emma called, skipping into the kitchen with a smile. As I watched my husband and daughter laugh together, surrounded by the kitchen I poured my heart into, I realized we gained something far more valuable than just keeping our home. We'd found our strength, our truth, our peace. No toxic family members required. What about you? Would you have exposed Sarah and Barbara's schemes right away or waited to gather more evidence like I did? Sometimes staying quiet reveals people's true colors, but it can also mean enduring more pain. Drop your thoughts below.